Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Thank you so much for joining me here. It's always lovely to see everybody. I can appreciate you dropping in. Tonight we are going to be keeping it dramatically more simple than usual. We're just gonna do some Brothers Grimm. There are plenty of stories by the Brothers Grimm that I'm fond of, and in many ways, I think a lot of us are introduced to the works of the Brothers Grimm long before we're introduced to most others. Only thing I can think of that sometimes is introduced earlier is Mother Goose, of all things. So, I'm really delighted to get to share some of these with you here. I feel like it's a little bit of a cop-out to use Grimm's Tales, though, because people have heard Grimm's Tales. They're readily available. But every once in a while, it's kind of interesting to just revisit them, have a simple night, have a cup of hot cocoa, and keep it just nice and straightforward. So, that is my plan for here tonight. We're just going to have a real gentle time with some fairy tales that may or may not be as chill as what you usually think of. And that's alright. That's totally fair. Because we don't have to be just one thing. The same way that stories are almost never just one thing. So I'll open tonight with one that I always think gets kind of a short trip. And that is Rapunzel. As a little one, I did not necessarily enjoy the original format of this. It seemed like such a baffling thing. And it wasn't until many years later in my adulthood that I started to understand the nature of what was really going on here, and why the witch would have done what she did. So we'll start by covering the version captured here in this translation, and we'll probably talk about this one a little bit once we finish. So, with that, let's get into the story. Rapunzel. There once lived a man and his wife who had long wished for a child, but in vain. Now there was at the back of their house a little window which overlooked a beautiful garden, full of the finest vegetables and flowers. But there was a high wall around it, and no one ventured into it, for it belonged to a witch of great might, and of whom all the world was afraid. One day, when the wife was standing at the window and looking into the garden, she saw a bed filled with the finest rampion, also called Rapunzel, and it looked so fresh and green that she began to wish for some, and at length she longed for it greatly. This went on for days, and as she knew she could not get the rampion, she pined away and grew pale and miserable. Then the man was uneasy and asked, "What is the matter, dear wife?" "Oh," answered she, "I shall die unless I can have some of this rampion to eat that grows in the garden at the back of our house." The man, who loved her very much, thought to himself, "Rather than lose my wife, I will get some rampion, cost what it will." So in the twilight he climbed over the wall into the witch's garden, plucked hastily a handful of rampion, and brought it to his wife. She made a salad of it at once, and ate of it to her heart's content. But she liked it so much, and it tasted so good, that the next day she longed for it thrice as much as she had done before. If she was to have any rest, the man must climb over the wall once more. So he went in the twilight again, and as he was climbing back, he saw, all at once, the witch standing before him, and was terribly frightened as she cried, with angry eyes, "How dare you climb over into my garden like a thief, and steal my rampion? It shall be the worse for you." "Hello, Soliloquy. Welcome in. Good evening."
"Oh,"
answered he,
"be merciful rather than just. I have only done it through necessity, for my wife saw your rampion out of the window, and became possessed of so great a longing that she would have died if she could not have had some to eat."
Then the witch said, If it is all as you say, you may have as much rampion as you like, on one condition. The child that will come into this world must be given to me. It shall go well with the child, and I will care for it like a mother. I'm doing great. This internet weirdo's proud of me. Remember, doing my best doesn't mean giving it 100%. Some days are 18% kind of days. Aw, thank you, Soliloquy. I'll read more of that once we finish with the story, but it's great to see you, and I hope you have a good night wherever you are. In his distress of mind, the man promised everything, and when the time came, when the child was born, the witch appeared, and giving the child the name Rapunzel, the same as Rampion, she took it away with her. Rapunzel was the most beautiful child in the world. When she was 12 years old, the witch shut her up in a tower in the midst of a wood, and it had neither steps nor door, only a small window above. When the witch wished to be let in, she would stand below and cry, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Rapunzel had long, beautiful hair that shone like gold. When she heard the voice of the witch, she would undo the fastening of the upper window, unbind the plaits of her hair, and let it down 20 ells below, and the witch would climb up by it. Hello, Dark Bogart. Let's get you shouted out here. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. If you're not already familiar with Dark Bogart, he is a comic artist as well as been doing quite a bit of Sonic OC art lately. And go check him out, spend a little time with the Texas Toe Biter. He's a lovely companion. I don't think I've ever regretted spending time with him. After they had lived thus a few years, it happened that as the king's son was riding through the wood, he came to the tower, and as he drew near, he heard a voice singing so sweetly that he stood still and listened. It was Rapunzel in her loneliness trying to pass away the time with sweet songs. The king's son wished to go in to her and sought to find a door in the tower, but of course there was none. So he rode home, but the song had entered into his heart, and every day he went into the wood and listened to it. Once, as he was standing there under a tree, he saw the witch come up and listened while she called out, "Oh, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" Then he saw how Rapunzel let down her long tresses, and how the witch climbed up by them and went into her. And he said to himself, "Since that is the ladder, I will climb it, and seek my fortune." And the next day, as soon as it began to grow dusk, he went to the tower and cried, "Oh, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair!" And she let down her hair, and the king's son climbed by it. Rapunzel was greatly terrified when she saw that a man had come to see her, for she had never seen one before. But the king's son began speaking so kindly to her, and told how her singing had entered into his heart, so that he could have no peace until he had seen her herself. Then Rapunzel forgot her terror, and when he asked her to take him for a husband, and she saw he was young and beautiful, she thought to herself, "Oh, I certainly like him much better than old Mother Gothel." And then she put her hand into his hand, saying, "I would willingly go with you, but I do not know how I shall get out. When you come, bring each time a silken rope, and I will make a ladder, and when it is quite ready, I will get down by it out of the tower, and you shall take me away to your house." They agreed that he should come and to her every evening, as the old woman came in the daytime. So the witch knew nothing of all this until once Rapunzel said to her unwittingly, "Mother Gothel, how is it you climb up here so slowly, and the king's son is with me in a moment?" "Oh, wicked child!" cried the witch. "What is this I hear? I thought I had hidden you from all the world, and you have betrayed me." In her anger, she seized Rapunzel by her beautiful hair, struck her several times with her left hand, and then, grasping a pair of shears in her right, snip, snap, the beautiful locks lay on the ground. and she was so hard-hearted that she took Rapunzel and put her away in a desert place where she lived in great woe and misery. The same day on which she took Rapunzel away, she went back to the tower in the evening and made fast severed locks of hair to the window hasp. And the king's son came and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Then she let her hair down, and the king's son climbed up. But instead of his dearest Rapunzel, he found the witch looking at him with wicked, glittering eyes. "Aha!" she cried, mocking him. "You came for your darling, but the sweet bird sits no longer in the nest and sings no more. The cat has got her and will scratch your eyes out as well. Rapunzel is lost to you. You will see her no more." The king's son was beside himself with grief, and in his agony he sprang from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns on which he fell gouged his eyes out. Then he wandered blind through the world, eating nothing but roots and berries, and doing nothing but lament and weep for the loss of his dearest wife. So he wandered several years in misery, until at last he came to the deserted place where Rapunzel lived with her twin children she had borne, a boy and a girl. And at first he heard a voice that he thought he knew, and when he reached the place from which it seemed to come, Rapunzel knew him, and fell on his neck and wept. And when her tears touched his eyes, they became clear again, and he could see with them as well as ever. Then he took her to his kingdom, where he was received with great joy, and there they lived happily ever after. Hello, Mordred. Welcome in. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us here tonight. So, the telling of Rapunzel, I think even this version, there are some details that I'm not necessarily fond of. One of the details that I always felt really adds to the story is when Rapunzel isn't found out through some slip of the tongue, or the prince showing up at the wrong time, but simply through the obvious nature of what they had been doing together. And while this one kind of implies it, with her having twins after the fact, and the fact is, pregnancy can be kind of a complicated thing, and very difficult to hide if you know what you're looking for. So, I always like when it's actually the pregnancy that gives her away, rather than, just some kind of generic anger at, oh, you're not supposed to be in the world. And part of why I like that premise is because realistically, when the witch finds this child, her parents kind of suck. And, there exist people who really aren't meant to be parents. That's an okay thing to admit. And so getting to have this story start out with the tale of, oh yeah, her dad breaks into the neighbor's yard and steals from her garden. And then following that up with the witch being like, oh, look, I can't leave this kid with you. You guys suck. You're gonna raise a kid who sucks. Let's just not do this. You guys take what you need from my garden, have a good, strong, healthy kid, and when the time comes, I'm gonna take her and, try to raise her a little bit less terribly. And if her singing is anything to go by, the witch has some pretty solid success there. I think that's definitely something worth noting too, that this girl grows up to be somebody who is even desired by princes. That's not necessarily a trivial thing. So, as she grows up, she's kept away from the world because it's like, I don't want to expose her to this stuff until I'm ready to help her navigate it. And lo and behold, even keeping her in a tower in the middle of nowhere with no entrances, she still can't stop this girl from growing up too fast and making some bad decisions. Because she has no place to raise these kids in this tower. Is she just assuming the prince is going to take her away? Yeah, and, hopefully. But even with all of that, the witch doesn't, throw her out into the world. the witch takes her to a different place and clearly gives her enough help to start raising her kids. So the prince comes in and she's like, "Nah, son, you messed up." Shoves him back out of the window, and he wanders blind and yearning for this woman and, children that in this version he didn't know he had. But in the traditional version of, it's the pregnancy that gives Rapunzel away, he knows he's got kids on the way, if not, actually here. So losing his family in this way is actually worse than losing his sight. And he continues wandering until he just happens across because fairy tale magic. But that wondering, that yearning, that adds something more to the story than just, oh yeah, he showed up and liked how she sang. I really like that kind of a conclusion to the story at that point, that he does get to become part of this family that he honestly thought he lost. Mordred saying, "For real, the witch is a better parent than the parents." Yeah, that's also a component to this. A family is so many things, but it's not just blood. And our duties to each other as fellow humans do not stop simply because of blood. So, this story has definitely grown on me over the years. What started out as something that I found very scary and confusing has turned out to have a very special place in my heart. So, coming back to Soliloquy's statement, "You're doing great. This internet weirdo is proud of you. And remember, doing your best doesn't mean always giving 100%. Some days are 18% kind of days. Just do your best and stay shiny. I believe in you. You are not alone, and your skeleton will always support you, even if you break it. We're here for you no matter what you decide, and we'll still be here if you need a break. We'll be here for you when you return to welcome you back. So don't forget to rest and take care of yourself." And that's very true too. We, as part of a stream, we present ourselves to you, but you also present yourselves to us. Silent Somebody. Now there is a name I don't actually recognize, but it's lovely to have you here with us. Thank you for joining in. I'm doing fairly well. I just didn't have a lot of extra time to prepare this round, so instead of, a usual ongoing story that I've really prepared in advance, we're just winging it with some Brothers Grimm stories, and I'm kind of filling in pieces here with my own personal relationship with the stories. You've been there before? I'm not sure which part of that you're identifying with, and that's totally okay too. The last time was like last year? Oh my goodness. Well, it's really good that you've returned. Thank you for joining us again. I don't have the bot that tells you followage there. Sorry, Silence. But yeah, it's good to have you back here with us. Yeah, I know, it's frustrating. So, let's see, we've done Rapunzel. Are there any audience requests for a Grimm's fairy tale before I throw us into one of my own selection? Because, it's always fun to hear what other people like as well. And sometimes finding out that we have mutual connections is pretty cool. If nobody has a preference, I'll probably roll into Sleeping Beauty, because that's kind of an interesting one too. And did Grimm do Pandora's Box? No, that is directly out of Greek mythology. Though I can certainly add some Greek myths into the rotation here at some point if you'd like. I don't remember exactly which source attests to Pandora's Box. I would have to look that up. The story itself is fairly simple, though, and it appears in most anthologies of Greek mythology that you'll come across, because it is a part of the overall creation myth. So, yeah. Oh, some people do spin-offs. It's one of your favorite stories. We can certainly see about doing Pandora's Box sometime. I'm trying to remember, because I know there was sort of a variation of it that was done by the Brothers Grimm, or at least collected by them, but it wasn't necessarily, Oh, you came through Sophia Ignosi. Okay, gotcha. You know, heck, while we're at it, let's shout out Sophia, because I haven't seen her in quite a while. Sophia also does storybook nights and is very relaxing to be around. She also does ASMR and video games. I haven't gotten to see her very much lately, but it's always fantastic when I do. So definitely go check her out if you get some time. Oh, she's streaming now on YouTube now too. I am actually simulcasting this to YouTube, and should probably check my YouTube chat to make sure that I'm moderating it properly. But not right now. Okay, good to know. But no. So yeah, that's good to hear that she's on YouTube as well. So people who are interested in joining in with the YouTube stuff, you've got a reason to look for Sophia Ignosi over there too. I don't know what her URL is though. Let's see. I am, at least in this particular collection, not seeing what I was thinking of when I thought of what would the Brothers Grimm write if they were writing the Myth of Pandora's Box. That doesn't mean it's not here. It just means that at least with their way of labeling things, it's not showing up. Quick question, how long does the story need to be until copyright doesn't affect it anymore? So Twitch is based in the US, so I usually will use US copyright law unless we know we can get, like, say, something out of the UK. But US copyright law is 100 years past the death of the author or its first publication date, whichever happens later. So if a book is published after the death of the author, it starts ticking from when it was actually published. Whereas if it is published during the author's lifetime, you get 100 years after the death of the author on that. So, yeah. If nobody has a preference, let's actually just jump over to Gambling Hansel, because that's kind of a fun one, and it's not one that gets retold very often. But yeah, the Brothers Grimm collected a bunch of stuff from the Middle Ages, so this stuff's usually pretty easy. Mind doing you a favor after this next one? What's the favor? Go ahead and let me know. Always happy to hear people recommend things that they'd like to see. Can I read one of your pieces? So I do have someone else who's requested that I read their pieces on stream as well. And my answer to that is, first of all, yes. Whether I read it on stream or not is more of a... I do need to vet whatever it is that you're going to be presenting. We keep things kind of PG-13 around here. So if it's something that has a lot of more suggestive themes or things like that, I usually just need to take a look through and make sure that it goes to the right place. That's not to say that I wouldn't read your piece and then, like, give you the recording. It's for all ages. The description's kind of horrifying. Well, we have plenty of fairy tales like that. Go ahead and tell us a bit about your story while I read here. And when I'm done, we can look it over. It definitely hit me up after class. If you're not already a member of the Discord, let's just get a link to our Discord community here real quick. Brian, do you happen to be out lurking there somewhere? I think Brian usually likes to let me know that he's lurking, but, Oh! Welcome, Raiders! Hello! Welcome in! This is why I need a bot? Well, there's many reasons I need a bot. Welcome in, Clover Star. How was stream? What were you guys up to here? I don't recognize your name, but I'm glad to have you here with us. You recommend SiriBot? I will certainly look into it. I don't tend to spend a lot of time examining bots for stream, but I can certainly pass it by kind of my more internet tech savvy team and see what they think. But yeah, welcome in Raiders, welcome in Cloverstar. So we had just been talking about, joining in my Discord if that's something that you are, that you would prefer to do. I know some people would, like to recommend different stories or things like that. So we do have the Discord there if you need it. Hi, it was good. You didn't ask me anything fashion review, then read some of Aldous Huxley's Heaven and Hell. Oh, nice. Always glad to have someone else who's doing reading. Aldous Huxley, I've read Brave New World, but I don't think I've read Heaven and Hell. I will have to add that to my reading list. What was it about? How did it go? And also, ask me anything fashion? I'm gonna need to check this out later, so let's definitely make sure that you're on my follow list. Bam. But yeah, no, how did it go? Talk to me. And yeah, so Silent, if you want to go ahead and hop into the Discord there, or just hit me up directly with a link to your story so I can look it over. Yeah, I'm always happy to have independent artists who want to share their work here, and there's some really cool writing out there that I would love to share with people. So I'm really honored that you would, want to use my voice to share some of that with people. Hello, you're here for Grim Things. Necromancer, welcome in. It's good of you to join us. Heck, let's see if the shoutout cooldown has finished yet. There we go. Necromancer does some video games and is just generally a wonderful companion. Go spend some time with them. It's great. It's a sister piece to The Doors of Perception. They're both about how Huxley's use of mescaline informed his perspective on visions and consciousness. Ooh, deep philosophy from Aldous Huxley? Oh, I gotta dive into this. I'll have to add it to my reading list. Thank you very much for recommending it here. Your autocorrect turned things into thighs? Okay, you know what? That's totally fine. Yes, it's good if I'm into that sort of thought. Well, there's a lot of thought out there, and even if I don't end up agreeing with the thoughts, understanding where they come from expands my world and helps me have new perspectives on things. So, I'm always very inclined to learn. Once again, thank you for joining us here, and I think I am going to start Gambling Hansel, so if you need to take care of yourself after stream, feel free to, but welcome in, Brian. Good to have you with us. Now I can start having you shout people out instead of doing it myself. But yeah, take care of any post-stream stuff that you need to. Always happy to have you here, happy to have you lurking, especially when we're doing story nights. It's very nice to have people able to just listen in. How has Grimm been? We've gotten through Rapunzel so far, and I am quite fond of Rapunzel. I went on kind of a long tangent that finished just before you raided in, so... Yeah, did someone say shout out? Oh, silly Brian. Story is called The Chronicles of the Lost Brothers. Oh, okay. So we'll look more into Silent Somebody's description of their story here in just a little bit, and we will roll on into the next Brothers Grimm story, Gambling Hansel. Once upon a time, there was a man who did nothing but gamble, and for that reason, people never called him anything but Gambling Hansel. And as he never ceased to gamble, he played away his house and all that he had. Now the very day before his creditors were to take his house from him, came the Lord and St. Peter, and asked him to give him shelter for the night. Then Gambling Hansel said, "For my part, you may stay the night, but I cannot give you a bed or anything to eat." So the Lord said he was just to take them in, and they themselves would buy something to eat, to which Gambling Hansel made no objection. Thereupon St. Peter gave him 3 groschen and said he was to go to the baker's and fetch some bread. Hello, Nebby. Welcome in. Brian, do you think you could shout out Nebulinar Nebby here? I would really appreciate it. Thank you. So Gambling Hansel went, but when he reached the house where the other gambling vagabonds were gathered together, they, although they had won all that he had, greeted him clamorously and said, "Hansel, do come in!"
"Oh,"
said he.
"Do you want to win the 3 groschen too?"
On this they would not let him go, so he went in and played away the 3 groschen also. Thank you for the shout out there. For those not already familiar with Nebby, she is a Dark Angel streamer who likes to do pixel art and a variety of other things. Her art's fantastic. Her voice is very soft and sonorous. I can't recommend her highly enough either. She just really is a wonderful time. So if you get a chance to catch her, definitely go spend some time with her. Whenever anyone says to the baker, "Go fetch some bread," you know something's good. Oh, send someone to the baker to fetch some bread. You know stuff's going down. Yes, that is the start of so many problems, is go get me some bread. Didn't know what about me, somebody? Alright. Meanwhile, St. Peter and the Lord were waiting, and as he was so long in coming, they set out to meet him. When Gambling Hansel came, however, he pretended that the money had fallen into the gutter and kept raking about in it all the while to find it. Of course, our Lord already knew he had lost it in play. St. Peter again gave him 3 groschen, and now he did not allow himself to be led away once more, but fetched them the loaf. Our Lord then inquired if he had no wine, and said, "Alack, sir, the casks are all empty." But the Lord said he was to go down to the cellar, for the best wine was still there. For a long time he would not believe this, but at length he said, "Well, I will go down, but I don't know that there is none. I know that there is none there." Bread? Bread, it's good stuff. Early the next day, our Lord told Gambling Hans that he might beg 3 favors. The Lord expected he would ask him to go to heaven, but Gambling Hansel asked for a pack of cards with which he could win everything, for dice with which he would win everything, and for a tree whereon every kind of fruit would grow, and from which no one who had climbed up could descend until Gambling Hansel bade him to. The Lord gave him all that he asked and departed with St. Peter. Oh, thank you, Silent. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's not something that I generally talk about, but I'm glad that you've recognized it. And, And now Gambling Hansel at once set about gambling in real earnest, and before long he had gained half the world. Upon this, St. Peter said to the Lord, "Lord, this thing must not go on. He will win and thou will lose the whole world. We must send Death to him, though." When Death appeared, Gambling Hansel had just seated himself at the gaming table, and Death said,
"Hansel, come out for a while."
But Gambling Hansel said,
Just wait a little until the game is done. And in the meantime, get up into that tree out there and gather a little fruit that we may have something to munch on our way."
Thereupon Death climbed up, but when he wanted to come down again, he found he could not, and Gambling Hansel left him up there for 7 years, during which time no one died. So St. Peter said to the Lord,
"Lord, this thing must not go on. People no longer die. We must go ourselves."
And they went themselves, and the Lord commanded Hansel to let Death come down. So Hansel went at once to Death, and said to him, "Come down," and Death took him directly and put an end to him. Oh, you didn't know about my vocal range? Well, I'm glad you're enjoying. They went away together and came to the next world. And then Gambling Hans made straight for the door of heaven and knocked at it.
Who's there?
Gambling Hansel.
Ah, well, we have nothing to do with him. Begone.
So he went to the door of purgatory and knocked once more.
Who's there?
Gambling Hansel.
There's quite enough weeping and wailing here without him. We do not want to gamble. Just go away again.
Then he went to the door of hell, and there they let him in. There was, however, no one at home but old Lucifer and the crooked devils who had just been doing their evil work in the world. And so no sooner was Hansel there than he sat down to gamble once again. And thank you for the hydrate. Hydration complete. Do you do a thing, yes or no? Brian, I'm not going to play a guessing game with you. You know what you're allowed to do here and what you're not. And I will ask you to respect those rules. Celine VA when? I actually do voice acting in terms of just, like, casual things. Feel free to reach out. You've got the Discord link up above, or can find me on Discord at Celine_Heidelman. I'm also on Blue Sky if you want to reach out there instead. Shouting out is allowed? Yes, Brian, shouting out is allowed. Alright, let's see here. Let that hydrate distract me. Alright. Lucifer, however, had nothing to lose but his misshapen devils, and Gambling Hansel won them from him, as with his cards he could not fail to do. He would, but you're too broke? Well, things change over time. Never be too hard on yourself just for where you're at in the moment. Now he was off again with his crooked devils, and they went to Hohenfurt and pulled up a hop pole, and with it went to heaven and began to thrust the pole against it, and heaven began to crack. So again St. Peter said, "Lord, this thing cannot go on. We must let him in, or he will throw us down from heaven." And they let him in. But Gambling Hansel immediately began to play again, and there was such a noise and confusion that there was no hearing what they themselves were saying. Therefore St. Peter once more said to the Lord, "Lord, this cannot go on. We must throw him down, or he will make all heaven rebellious." So they went to him at once, and threw him down, and his soul broke into fragments, and went into the gambling vagabonds, who still live to this very day. Naruto, welcome in. Thank you for dropping in to say hi. It's always good to see you, cutie. Really, I can appreciate it. Alright, so Silent Somebody is writing a story called The Chronicles of the Lost Brothers, about two twin brothers who look different. Their mother looks like us, but their father is a huge weapons fanatic, loving tanks, guns, bows, and swords. He gave 2 swords to his 2 sons, and they have various skin colors and seek to answer 3 questions: who they are, where they came from, and what happened to their true father. Interesting. We'll definitely have to take a peek at it then, Silent Somebody. Thank you. So yeah, that's... Gambling Hans is a heck of a story. And it's interesting to me partly because the characters involved are, first of all, very clearly not life models. Like, this is not something where we expect fairy tales to be, here's the best way to live a good life. And Gambling Hansel does a wonderful job of illustrating that people are messy and complicated. And also that, at least during the Brothers Grimm's day, the nature of people's interactions with divine understanding were a bit different too. That you didn't expect that there was a fully omniscient deity capable of seeing all the future, but somebody who knew what was going on and could pretty plainly see what was happening. And that this nature of chance and games in some ways being stronger. Celine, what if I'm the role model? Well, then I hope that the things that you're taking from me are things that help you to grow as a person, that help you to do right by the people around you, and that are things you feel proud to have in your life. Because I really do want to do my best to support people, to make everybody feel welcomed, and to share some of the wonderful things that I have with others. Those are absolutely critical. And so if those are things that you take away from these stories, or, just a little bit of happiness and having shared time, those are things that I'm more than delighted to have you seeing me as a role model for. You've sent it to my DMs. Perfect. Thank you, Silent Somebody. I really appreciate it. I don't have hand tracking, but definitely making a little heart with my hands here. Yeah, I'm really glad that you've chosen to share this with me. Thank you. So once again, I will put the question out to chat. Are there any particular stories that you would like to hear? Are there any thoughts you have on gambling haunts and the nature of interacting with the divine? And while we look through here, Gamba? I'm not certain what that means. You're just not awe of his ability to go, "Heaven, let me in." And when Heaven said no, he said, "Come on," and eventually got in. Well, he didn't just go, "Come on." He rallied all the forces of hell, and instead of, trying to take it by force, they just get a really big stick and poke Heaven until Heaven's like, "We can't keep ignoring this guy, apparently. Guess we gotta let him in." You're absolutely right, though. Gamba means to gamble. Okay, what language is that from, somebody? Or is that just an older form in English? Or I'm very curious about the origins on this. But yeah, the nature of being persistent is very, very significant in most cultures. If nobody has a particular recommendation, I think we'll jump into the Bremen Town Musicians. Heck yeah. This is another fun one. There once was an ass whose master had made him carry sacks to the mill for many long years, but whose strength began at last to fail, so that each day as it came found him less capable of work. Then his master began to think of turning him out, but the ass, guessing that something was in the wind that boded him no good, ran away, taking the road to Bremen, for there he thought he might get an engagement as a town musician. Picturing a bunch of sinners from hell outside of Heaven's Gate protesting their treatment, just got the full signs and everything. When he had gone a little way, he found a hound lying by the side of the road, panting as if he had run a long way.
"Now hold fast! What are you so out of breath about?"
said the ass.
"Oh dear,"
said the dog.
"now I am old. I get weaker every day, and can do no good in the hunt. So as my master was going to have me killed, I have made my escape. But now, how am I to gain a living?"
"I will tell you what. I am going to Bremen to become a town musician. You may as well go with me and take up music too. I can play the lute, and you can beat the drum."
And the dog consented, and they walked on together. Interesting. I did not realize that the second Fear and Hunger game had Bremen referenced in it. It was not long before they came to a cat sitting in the road, looking as dismal as 3 wet days.
"Now then, what is the matter with you, old shaver?"
"I should like to know who would be cheerful when his neck is in danger. Now that I am old and my teeth are getting blunt, and I would rather sit by the oven and purr than run about after mice, and my mistress wanted to drown me. So I took myself off. But good advice is scarce, and I do not know what is to become of me.
Go with us to Bremen and become town musician. You see, understand serenading?
The cat thought well of this idea and went with them accordingly. I have played some Fear and Hunger. One of our one of the streamers that I'm closely networked with is quite fond of the game. So I have more of the lore than I have playtime in the game. After the three travelers passed by a yard, a cock was perched on the gate, crowing with all his might.
Your cries are enough to pierce bone and marrow. What is the matter?
I have foretold good weather for Lady today, so that all the shirts may be washed and dried. And now on Sunday morning company is coming, and the mistress has told the cook that I must be made into soup, and this evening my neck is to be wrung, so that I am crowing with all my might while I can.
You had much better go with us, Chanticleer,
said the ass.
We are going to Bremen. At any rate, that will be better than dying. You have a powerful voice, and when all are performing together, it will have a very good effect.
So the cock consented, and they went all four together. But Bremen was too far off to be reached in one day, and toward evening they came to a wood where they determined to pass the night. Brian, if you have to head out, it's always good to see you. Thank you for joining us here. I really can appreciate it. The ass and the dog lay down under a large tree. The cat got up among the branches, and the cock flew to the top, as that was the safest place for him. Before he went to sleep, he looked all around him to the 4 points of the compass, and perceived in the distance a little light shining. And he called out to his companions that there must be a house not far off, as if he could see light. So the ass said,
We had better get up and go there, for there are uncomfortable quarters here.
The dog began to fancy a few bones, not quite bare, would do him good, and they all set off in the direction of the light, and it grew larger and brighter, until at last it led them to a robber's house, all lighted up. The ass, being the biggest, went to the window and looked in. You realize the Grimm fairy tales remind you of a book you used to read as a child? Interesting.
Well, what do you see?
Asked the dog.
What do I see? Here is a table set out with splendid uneatables and drinkables, and robbers sitting at it and making themselves very comfortable.
That would just suit us,
said the cock.
Yes, indeed, if I were there.
Yes, indeed, if we were in there.
Then they consulted together how it should be managed so as to get the robbers out of the house, and at last they hit on a plan. The ass was to get his 4 feet on the windowsill, the dog to get on the ass's back, the cat on top of the dog, and lastly the cock would fly up and perch on the cat's head. When that was done, at a given signal, they all began to perform their music. The ass brayed, the dog barked, the cat mewed, and the cock crowed. Then they burst through into the room, breaking all the panes of glass. The robbers fled at the dreadful sound. They thought it was some goblin and fled into the wood in utmost terror. Then the 4 companions sat down to table, made free with the remains of the meal, and feasted as if they had been hungry for a month. And when they had finished, they put out lights, and each sought out a sleeping place to suit his nature and habits. The ass laid down outside on the dunghill, the dog behind the door, the cat on the hearth by the warm ashes, and the cock in the cockloft. And as they were all tired from their long journey, they soon fell asleep. Cocks crowed. You thought they only scream? Cock crowing is a phrase that has been used for quite a while. I know that there are quite a few examples of it in the English that I was taught growing up. But yes, I would say a cock's crowing sounds much more like screaming than the caw of an actual crow. When midnight drew near, and the robbers from afar saw that no light was burning and everything appeared quiet, their captain said to them that he thought they had run away without a reason, telling one of them to go and reconnoiter. So one of them went and found everything quite quiet. He went into the kitchen to strike a light, and taking the glowing, fiery eyes of the cat for burning coals, he held a match to them in order to kindle it. But the cat, not seeing the joke, flew into his face, spitting and scratching. Then he cried out in terror and ran to get at the back door. But the dog who was lying there ran at him and bit his leg. And as he was rushing out into the yard by the dung hill, the ass struck out and gave him a great kick with his hind foot, and the cock, who had been awakened with the noise, felt quite brisk and cried out, "Cock-a-doodle-doo!" Then the robber got back as well as he could to his captain and said,
"Oh dear, in that house there was a gruesome witch, and I felt her breath and her long nails in my face. And by the door there stands a man who stabbed me in the leg with a knife. In the yard there lies a black spectre who beat me with his wooden club, and above on the roof there sits the justice who cried, 'Bring the rogue here!' And so I ran away from the place as fast as I could."
From that time forward, the robbers never ventured into that house, and the 4 Bremen town musicians found themselves so well off where they were that there they stayed, and the person who last related this tale is still living, as you see. Hey, no worries, Brian. Get some good sleep. You know it's always wonderful to have you here. And, we all have folly in our lives. That's part of the fun. In fact, this story wouldn't be nearly as much fun without a degree of folly to it. I also like this one. The robber had a really bad day. Yes! Oh, the whole troop of robbers had a bad day, but particularly the one they sent scouting. Oh, he got some pain, and it's kind of deserved, but doggone if that wasn't, kind of impressive in its own way. But yeah, one of the things that I like about this one is it really brings kind of the nature of old age and really how we as people see each other. In so many ways, I think we treat growing older as kind of this, you eventually get out of the way to make way for someone new. And there is some of that, but that doesn't mean that you just go off into the sunset and are never heard from again. There's still a lot of living to be done after work is no longer something that you can or should perform. And finding a place in the world even after you've been let out, that's something that I like stories to really kind of drive home. That there is still a place for you. You just might have to kick and scream a little bit to find it. But yeah, so another one that I'm fond of. Of course, as a child, I more just thought it was funny that, oh hey, these farm animals beat off a bunch of robbers, and it's like, well, okay, that's pretty fun too. Oh dear, oh dear. Alright, well, we've definitely got time for at least one more here. So, let's see. Last call for tales that you would like to hear out of the Brothers Grimm's collection here, or if there's something that you'd like me to look up, I can certainly give it a try. Clearly after this I'm going to have to go track down the version of what was it? Pandora's Box that I was trying to remember from the Brothers Grimm tales. But yeah, not really seeing any requests or recommendations here, and that's totally fine. Oh, is Clever Gretel what I remember it to be? Oh, I sincerely hope so. Let's see. That is not what I was thinking of, and that's okay. But flipping back here... I am feeling a little bit silly. One of the reasons that we started as late as we did was I thought I had a anthology that I was already quite familiar with downloaded here on my system, and unfortunately I couldn't find it, so I had to grab a different collection that had at least a few of the ones that I was interested in. And this one did not disappoint in that regard. Okay, we'll finish it out with one of my absolute favorites from Grimm's collection. And we'll see how this retelling stacks up with the one that I'm more familiar with. But finding a copy of this that I could use for stream took more time than I will ever want to admit. So, this is the story of Mother Holle. A widow had 2 daughters. One was pretty and industrious, the other was ugly and lazy. And as the ugly one was her own daughter, she loved her much better than the pretty one, who was made to do all the work and bear the drudgery of the house. Every day the poor girl had to sit by a well on a high road and spin until her fingers bled. Now it happened once that, as the spindle was bloody, she dipped it into the well to wash it, but it slipped out of her hand and fell in. Then she began to cry and ran to her stepmother and told her of the misfortune, and her stepmother scolded her without mercy and in her rage said, "As you have let the spindle fall in, you must go out and get it again." Then the girl went back again to the well, not knowing what to do, and in despair of her heart she jumped down into the well the same way the spindle had gone. After that she knew nothing, and when she came to herself, she was in a beautiful meadow, and the sun was shining on the flowers that grew around her. And she walked on through the meadow until she came to a baker's oven, full of bread. The bread called out to her,
"Oh, take me out, or I shall burn. I am baked enough already."
Then she drew near, and with the baker's peel she took out all the loaves, one after the other, and she went farther on till she came to a tree weighed down with apples, and it called out to her,
"Oh, shake me, we apples are all of us ripe."
Then she shook the tree until the apples fell like rain, and shook until there were no more to fall, and when she had gathered them together in a little heap, she went on further. At last she came to a house with an old woman peeping out of it, but she had such great teeth the girl was terrified and was about to run away. The old woman called her back.
"What are you afraid of, my dear child? Come and live with me, and if you do the housework well and orderly, things shall go well with you. You must take great pains to make my bed well and shake it up thoroughly, so that the feathers fly about, and then the world of men will snow, for I am Mother Holle."
As the old woman spoke so kindly, the girl took courage and consented, and went to her for work. She did everything the old woman asked to her satisfaction, and shook the bed with such a will that the feathers flew about like snowflakes. And so she led a good life, had never a cross word, but boiled and roast meat every day. When she had lived a long while with Mother Holle, she began to feel sad, not knowing herself what ailed her, and at last she began to think she must be homesick. And although she was 1,000 times better off than at home where she was, yet she had a great deal of longing to go home. At last she said to her mistress,
"I am homesick, and although I am very well off here, I cannot stay any longer. I must go back to my own home."
Mother Holle answered,
"It pleases me well that you should wish to go home, and as you have served me faithfully, I will undertake to send you there."
She took her by the hand and led her to a large door standing open, and as she was passing through it, there fell upon her a heavy shower of gold, and the gold hung all about her, so that she was covered with it.
All this is yours because you have been so industrious,
said Mother Holle, and beside that she returned to her the spindle, the very same she had dropped in the well. And then the door was shut again, and the girl found herself back in the world, not far from her mother's house. As she passed through the yard, the cock stood on top of the well and cried,
"Cock-a-doodle-doo! Our golden girl has come home too!"
If you ever run a tabletop game and someone casts a spell to understand all languages, you're having bread and trees talk to them. I like this idea. Then she went to her mother, and as she had returned covered with gold, she was well received. So the girl related her story and what had happened to her, and when the mother heard how she came to have such great riches, she began to wish that her ugly and idle daughter might have the same good fortune. So she sent her to sit by the well and spin, and in order to make her spindle bloody, she put her hand into a thorn hedge. Then she threw the spindle down into the well and jumped in herself. She found herself, like her sister, in the beautiful meadow, and followed the same path. And when she came to the baker's oven, the bread cried out,
"Oh, take me out, or I shall burn. I am quite done already."
But the lazy bones answered, "I have no desire to black my hands," and went further on. Soon she came to the apple tree, who cried out,
"Oh, shake me, we apples are all of us ripe."
But she answered,
"That's all very fine, suppose one of you should fall on my head,"
and went on further. When she came to Mother Holle's house, she did not feel afraid, as she knew beforehand of her great teeth, and entered into her service at once. The first day she put her hand well into the work and was industrious, and did everything Mother Holle bade her to do because of the gold she expected. But on the second day she began to be idle, and the third still more so that she would not get up in the morning. Neither did she make Mother Holle's bed as it ought to have been made, and did not shake it for the feathers to fly about. So Mother Holle soon grew tired of her, and gave her warning, at which the lazy thing was well pleased, and thought that now the shower of gold was coming. So Mother Holle led her to the door, and as she stood in the doorway, instead of a shower of gold, a great kettle full of pitch emptied over her.
"That is the reward for your service,"
said Mother Holle, and shut the door. So the lazy girl came home covered all with pitch, and the cock on top of the well, upon seeing her, cried,
"Cock-a-doodle-doo! Our dirty girl has come home too!"
And the pitch remained sticking to her fast, and never as long as she lived could she get it off. And this was definitely an interesting retelling. I think the artistry is a little bit different here, but the story beats are still very much the same. That it very quickly establishes, oh hey, girl, pretty, industrious, does all the work, and still gets crap for it. And she goes off into the world, and it's out in the wider world that she's well received. It's not necessarily a specific fault of her own that she's given all the duties at home. It just is the nature of what she's experiencing. And as she kind of makes her way and starts to see success, her mother's like, cool, now I should totally make my other girl do this. But it's not the nature of just performing the steps here. It's that these individual beats reveal something about the person underneath, and how a person starts to engage with the wider world when they're let outside of that very narrow place that we all start from. Let's see, so how are we doing here? Looks like we are about an hour in, so we definitely have time for more stories, but I am kind of running into place where my throat's just not staying hydrated very well. Let's see. Still, I think it would be fun to do another story if we can, so let's give that just a quick go here. Let's see here. What is one that I'm fond of? Because there really are so many that people are familiar with. Oh, you know what? We haven't done Hansel and Gretel yet tonight. I think we need to do that one. Oh, Necromancer, thank you for the hydrate redeem. Hydration complete. And I always appreciate it when people remind me to drink water, especially when I'm reading. It's very easy for me to get wrapped up in the story, just like everyone else. And if I don't take care of my throat, especially with some of the voices that I throw, it just doesn't do good things. So, thank you for helping take care of me here. Also, an hour in and I still have most of my cup left. Am I drinking from a larger cup than usual? What is this? Probably just a matter of I need to drink more. But water is good, and it takes good care of your body to keep some going. Hansel and Gretel. Near a great forest, there lived a poor woodcutter and his wife and his 2 children. The boy's name was Hansel and the girl's Gretel. They had very little to bite or to sup, and once, when there was a great dearth in the land, the man could not even gain the daily bread. As he lay in bed one night thinking of this, and turning and tossing, he sighed heavily and said to his wife,
"What will become of us? We cannot even feed our children. There is nothing left for ourselves."
I will tell you what, husband. We will take these children early in the morning into the forest, where it is thickest. We will make them a fire, we will give each of them a piece of bread, and then we will go to our work and leave them all alone. They will never find their way home again, and we shall be quit of them.
No, wife. I cannot do that. I cannot find it in my heart to take my children into the forest and leave them there alone. The wild animals would soon come and devour them.
Oh, you fool! Then we will all 4 starve. You had better get the coffins ready. And she left him no peace until he consented.
But I really pity the poor children.
The 2 children had not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard what their stepmother had said to their father. Gretel wept bitterly, and said to Hansel,
"It is all over with us."
"Do be quiet, Gretel, and do not fret. I will manage something."
And when their parents had gone to sleep, he got up, put on his little coat, opened the back door, and slipped out. The moon was shining brightly, and white flint stones lay in the front of the house, glistening like pieces of silver. Hansel stooped and filled the little pocket of his coat as full as he could. Then he went back again and said to Gretel,
"Be easy, dear little sister, and go to sleep quietly. God will not forsake us."
And laid down himself once again in his bed. When the day was breaking, and before the sun had risen, the wife came and awakened the 2 children, saying, "Get up, you lazy bones! We are going into the forest to cut wood." Then she gave each of them a piece of bread and said, "That is for dinner, and you must not eat it before then, for you will get no more." Gretel carried the bread under her apron, for Hansel had his pockets full of the flint. They set off all together on their way to the forest. When they had gone a little way, Hansel stood still and looked back toward the house, and this he did again and again till his father asked him,
"Hansel, what are you looking at? Take care not to forget your legs."
"Oh, father, I am looking at my little white kitten who is sitting up on the roof to bid me goodbye."
"You young fool, that is not your kitten, but the sunshine off the chimney pot."
Of course, Hansel had not been looking at his kitten, but had been taking every now and then a flint from his pocket, and dropping it on the road. When they reached the middle of the forest, the father told the children to collect wood to make a fire to keep them warm, and Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood enough for a little mountain, and it was set on fire, and when the flame was burning quite high, the wife said, "Now lie down by the fire and rest yourselves, you children, and we will go and cut wood, and when we are ready we will come and fetch you." So Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire, and at noon they ate their little pieces of bread. They thought their father was in the wood all the time, as they seemed to hear the strokes of his axe, but really it was only a dry branch hanging to a withered tree as the wind moved it to and fro. So when they had stayed there a long time, their eyelids closed with weariness, and they fell fast asleep. When at last they woke, it was night, and Gretel began to cry, and said,
"How will we ever get out of this wood?"
but Hansel comforted her, saying,
Wait a little longer until the moon rises, and then we can easily find the way home.
And when the full moon got up, Hansel took his little sister by the hand and followed the way where his flint stones shone like silver, and showed them the road. They walked on the whole night through, and at the break of day they came to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the wife opened it and saw it was Hansel and Gretel, she said, "You naughty children, why did you sleep so long in the wood? We thought you were never coming home again." But father was glad, for it had gone to his heart to leave them both in the woods alone. Not very long after that, there was again a great scarcity in those parts, and the children heard their mother say at night in bed to their father, "Everything is finished up. We have only half a loaf, and after that the tale comes to an end. The children must be off. We will take them farther into the woods this time, so that they shall not be able to find their way back again. There is no other way to manage." The man felt sad at heart, and he thought,
"Oh, it would be better to share one last morsel with one's child."
but the wife would listen to nothing that he said, and scolded and reproached him. He who says A must say B too, and when a man has given in once, he has to do it a second time. But the children were not asleep and had heard all the talk. When the parents had gone to sleep, Hansel got out and gathered more flintstones as he did before. But the wife had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. He comforted his little sister and said, "Don't cry, Gretel, and go to sleep quietly. God will help us." Early the next morning, the wife came and pulled the children out of bed. She gave them each a little piece of bread, less than before, and on the way to the wood, Hansel crumbled his bread in his pocket, and often stopped to throw a crumb on the ground.
"Hansel, what are you stopping behind and staring for?"
"I am looking at my little pigeon sitting on the roof to say goodbye to me."
"You fool! That is no pigeon, but the morning sun shining on the chimney pots." Hansel went on as before and stewed breadcrumbs all along the road. The woman led the children far into the wood, where they had never been before in all their lives. And again there was a large fire made, and the mother said, "Sit there, you children, and when you are tired you can go to sleep. We are going into the forest to cut wood, and in the evening when we are ready to go home we will come and fetch you." So when noon came, Gretel shared her bread with Hansel, who had strewn his along the road. Then they went to sleep, and the evening passed and no one came for the poor children. When they awoke it was dark night, and Hansel comforted his little sister and said, "Wait a little, Gretel, until morning the moon gets up, and then we shall be able to see the way home by the crumbs of bread I scattered." So when the moon rose they got up, but they could find no crumbs of bread, for the birds of the woods and of the field had come and picked them up. Hansel thought they might find the way all the same, but they could not. They went on all night and all the next day, and had nothing.
Hydrate and some stretchies. Thank you very much, Necromancer.
Was a stretchy complete. And hydration complete, and squats. Oh my goodness. Really getting a workout of me here tonight. Alright. Let's do some squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Alright. There we go. You got squat out of me. Alright. Now, let's see. They went on all that night and the next day from morning until evening, but they could not find the way out of the wood. They were very hungry, for they had nothing to eat but a few berries they could pick. And when they were so tired that they could no longer drag themselves along, they lay down under a tree and fell asleep. It was now the 3rd morning since they had left their father's house. They were always trying to get back to it, but instead of that, they only found themselves farther in the wood, and if help had not soon come, they would have starved. About noon, they saw a pretty snow-white bird sitting on a bough and singing so sweetly that they stopped to listen. And when he had finished, the bird spread his wings and flew before them, and they followed after him until they came to a little house, and the bird perched on the roof, and when they came nearer, they saw the house was built of bread and roofed with cakes, and the window was of transparent sugar. "We will have some of this, and make a fine meal. I will eat a piece of the roof, Gretel, and you can have some of the window. That'll taste sweet." So Hansel reached up and broke off a bit of roof just to see how it tasted, and Gretel stood by the window and gnawed at it. Then they heard a thin voice call out from inside,
"Nibble, nibble like a mouse. Who is nibbling at my house?"
And the children answered, "Never mind, it is the wind." And they went on eating, never disturbing themselves. Hansel, who found that the roof tasted very nice, took down a great piece of it, and Gretel pulled out a large round window pane and sat down and began upon it. Then the door opened, and an aged woman came out leaning on a crutch. Hansel and Gretel felt very frightened and let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, "Ah, my dear children, how come you here? You must come indoors and stay with me. You'll be no trouble." So she took each of them by hand and led them into her little house. And there they found a good meal laid out of milk and pancakes with sugar, apples and nuts. After that she showed them 2 little white beds, and Hansel and Gretel laid themselves down on them and thought they were in heaven. The old woman, despite being so kind, was a wicked hag who lay in wait for children and had built the little house on purpose to entice them. When they were once inside, she used to kill them, cook them, and eat them, and then it was a feast day for her. The hag's eyes were red and could not see very far, but she had a keen scent like wild beasts, and knew very well when human creatures were near. When she knew that Hansel and Gretel were coming, she gave a spiteful laugh and said triumphantly,
"I have them. They will not escape me."
Early in the morning, before the children were awake, she got up to look at them, and as they lay sleeping peacefully with round rosy cheeks, she said to herself,
"What a fine feast I shall have."
Then she grabbed Hansel with her withered hand and led him into a little stable and shut him up behind a grate, and call and scream as he might, it was no good. Then she went back to Gretel and shook her, crying,
"Get up, lazy bones. Fetch water and cook something nice for your brother. He is outside in the stable and must be fattened up.
and when he is fat enough, I will eat him."
Gretel began to cry bitterly, but it was no use. She had to do what the Wicked Witch bade her. And so the best kind of victuals were cooked for poor Hansel, while Gretel got nothing but crab shells. Each morning the old woman visited the little stable and cried,
"Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may tell if you will soon be fat enough."
Hansel, however, used to hold out a little bone, and the old hag, who had weak eyes, could not see what it was. Supposing it to be Hansel's finger, she wondered very much that it was not getting fatter. When 4 weeks had passed and Hansel seemed to remain so thin, she lost patience and could wait no longer.
"Now then, Gretel," she cried to the little girl, "be quick and draw water. Be Hansel fat or lean, tomorrow I must kill and cook him."
Oh, what a grief for the poor little sister to have to fetch water, and how the tears flowed down over her cheeks.
Dear God, pray help us. If we had been devoured by wild beasts in the wood, we should at least have died together.
"Spare me your lamentations, they are of no avail."
Early the next morning, Gretel had to be up, make the fire, and fill the kettle.
"First we will do the baking. I have heated the oven already and kneaded the dough."
She pushed poor Gretel toward the oven, out of which the flames were already shining.
"Creep in and see if it is properly hot, so that the bread may be baked."
And once Gretel was in, the hag had meant to shut the door upon her and let her be baked, and so she would have eaten her. But Gretel perceived her intention and said,
"I don't know how to do it. How am I supposed to get in?" "Stupid goose, the opening is big enough, don't you see? I could get in myself."
Local penguin, welcome in. Thank you for following us. And so the hag stooped down and put her head into the oven's mouth. Then Gretel gave her a push so that she fell in further, and then shut the door upon the hag and put up the bar. Oh, how frightfully the hag howled! But Gretel ran away and left the Wicked Witch to burn miserably. Gretel then went straight to Hansel and opened the stable door and cried,
"Hansel, we are free! The old witch is dead!"
Then out flew Hansel like a bird from its cage, and as soon as the doors opened, how rejoiced they both were! How they fell each on the other's neck and danced about and kissed each other, and as they had nothing more to fear, they went all over the old hag's house, and in every corner there stood chests of pearls and precious stones. "This is something better than flint stones," said Hansel as he filled his pockets. And Gretel, thinking she would also like to carry something home with her, filled her apron full. "Now away we go! If only we can get out of the witch's wood." When they had journeyed a few hours, they came to a great piece of water. "We could never hope to get across this. I see no stepping stones and no bridge, and there's no boat either."
"Oh, but here comes a white duck. I will ask her if she will help."
And so Gretel cried out,
"Duck, duck, here we stand, Hansel and Gretel on the land. Stepping stones and bridge we lack. Carry us over on your nice white back."
And the duck came accordingly, and Hansel got up on her and told his sister to come too.
"No, that would be too hard on the duck. We can go separately, one after the other."
And that was how it was managed, and after that they went on happily until they came to the wood, and the way grew more and more familiar, till at last they saw in the distance their father's house. Then they ran till they came up on it, rushed in the door, and fell on their father's neck. The man had not had a quiet hour since he left his children in the wood, but his wife was dead, and when Gretel opened her apron, the pearls and precious stones were scattered all over the room, and Hansel took one handful after another out of his pocket. Then was all care at an end, and they lived in great joy together. Sing everyone, my story is done, and look round the house. There runs a little mouse, he that can catch her before she scampers in, may make of himself a fur cap out of her skin. Well, that's a new song. I don't think I've actually seen that in any of the attestations I've read, but it's cute. I did like that they had the nibble nibble like a mouse line in this one. That's one that I don't see too much outside of particularly modern retellings. And I think it adds that little bit of like slight menace to the overall tale to give the hag some words other than, get in the oven. And this is one that is also adapted very frequently into children's media. Although, if you really think about it, like, this isn't much of a children's tale. The breadcrumb imagery is also something that we find fairly frequently in language, at least in English. And I think it's always interesting to note that the breadcrumbs are what people remember and not the flint, which is in fact missing in many versions of the story. Although the ones I prefer tend to have that initial stone gathering piece, because that's a real piece of all of this. It's also interesting to me that in this retelling, they included Gretel as shoving the witch in the oven, but Hansel is collecting the stones. Several of the attestations I've read that include the stones have them gathered by Gretel, who is just pretending to be particularly slow as they walk out to the house. But all the same, I like getting to see this interplay of the siblings and the dad being particularly distraught over all of this and the mom being like, nope, nothing else to do. We gotta shove the kids off into the world and that's the end of it. And it's not a problem for us to, leave them in the forest, but it's a problem if we, let them starve to death. Like, excuse me, lady, one of these things is not better than the other. So it very much comes back to those themes, like I've said, of, this premise of parents not automatically being infallible, but also of people who you wouldn't necessarily expect accomplishing great deeds. So I'm always, this one also stays very close to my heart. As things stand, though, I think we are about at the end of tonight. I've kind of had what I can handle in terms of sharing here, so it is time for us to look for a valid raid target. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody who joined in. A special thank you to Cloverstar, if you're still listening, for the raid. It was really very kind of you to share your audience with us here tonight. Let's see if we can find someone who is reading something here. Ooh, there we go. Looks like 24/7 is reading some Henry David Thoreau. So I think we are going to raid out there. And once again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in here today. With that, we will do our outro music. I'm glad you've joined our stream today. Stream here ends the stream here. But it's time to go our separate ways. Yes, it's time to end the stream here. Stream here ends the stream here. Oh, stream here ends the stream here. For the software's scuffed and the bit rate's low, and it's time to end the stream here. Until next time, I'll be waiting.